It was midnight, 21st December of 2023. In the small town of Asheville, North Carolina, everyone was asleep. The city was so quiet that a person could hear the sounds of slowly blowing winds. Ashley Parker was enjoying his weekend night at home. He was watching Netflix, having placed snacks beside him on the table. Ashley lived alone in a two-bed condo. It was past 1 a.m. when he heard a knock at his door. He was surprised and suspicious. He stayed on his sofa to reassure him whether it was his door or if he was hallucinating. When he heard the second knock, he reluctantly stood up and went towards the door, not knowing who had shown up at this time of the night. He looked through the peephole to find David there. He was surprised yet happy to see him. He opened the door and let David in. David seemed like a psychologically affected person who had not slept for quite a few days or had suffered extreme depression. He wore extremely dark circles around his eyes, his face pale, and his hair messed up. Ashley looked at him and could not believe what he saw. He asked David as if everything was good, since he never actually showed up uninformed at this time of the night. David said he had been thinking about certain things lately, and he is here for a reason. Ashley flirtatiously said, "Oh dear, don't get upset. I loved your surprise. But what have you made yourself?" David replied coldly, "I have no time for all your bullshit. I am here just to make a few things clear with you." Ashley, again in the same mood, said, "We have all night to talk about it. Let's get to the lounge first." David harshly replied, "No, I have to go back. I just came here to end everything. I cannot and will not leave my family for you." "Oh, David, please don't say it. I have never been expecting this answer from you." David was getting annoyed. He wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. "You filth, you think you can ruin my family and career. I am here to break our relationship up." This time Ashley got a little mad too. "I have warned you already. Lisa is just a click away." Suddenly David felt as if someone had punched him in the chest with the name Lisa. In the meanwhile, Ashley brought out his phone and displayed an intimate photo of him and David kissing. He threatened to send it to Lisa. David at first threatened him to not do so. Unconvincingly, he even became apologetic and begged Ashley not to do so. Ashley was constantly saying, "How could you leave me after all of the things we went through? I will not spare you to live freely." David quickly jumped to grab the phone off Ashley's hands, but he had clicked the send button to Lisa. David lost his senses and slapped Ashley with such intensity that he fell on the floor. Feeling humiliated, Ashley also retaliated, and within moments they were in an extreme fight. Ashley, however, did not want to hurt David. It was like he was mostly trying to defend himself and did not intend to hit David. But David, having lost his senses, was now sitting above Ashley's chest and punching him in the face constantly. Both of them were covered in blood. David quickly tried to grab something from the surroundings. Unfortunately, his hand went for the glass lamp on the side table of the sofa. He grabbed it and hit Ashley with it, and within a moment, blood was flowing like a stream out of Ashley's jugular veins. David regained his senses and was terrified. He could not believe what he had done. In the meanwhile, Ashley whispered something, breathing slowly. David went near to listen. He heard Ashley say, "I loved you and you did this to me." He took his last breath, and he died. David Folker was crushed under the burden of those words. He could not believe what he did. He was stunned. He sat there looking at Ashley's lifeless body for quite a while, when he stood up and left for his house, which was just a few blocks away. As he walked by the streets, he had made up his mind that he would tell his wife Lisa the truth and hand himself over to the police. Little did he know about the disaster that was waiting in the home. When he reached home, he found Lisa waiting for him in the lounge. She had turned red due to extreme anger. When she saw David come home, she did not even notice he was covered in blood and showed him his picture with Ashley. It was an intimate picture of them. She started questioning, yelling, and blaming. David asked her again and again to keep her voice low, since the children were sleeping in the bedroom upstairs. Lisa was in no mood to stop and was only interrupted by a hit in the face from David. David did not mean to do it, but it happened. Lisa felt humiliated by all this, and this was when she realized David was all soaked in blood. She was shocked at this. She felt tears on her face and yelled at him, asking what did he. All she could hear was a cracking voice. "I killed Ashley." It felt as if the earth had slipped away under Lisa's feet. She could not believe what she just heard. She quickly ran to the kitchen out of her senses. She felt threatened by a murderer. David followed her, asking to at least listen to him. Lisa quickly grabbed a regular kitchen knife, threatening him to stay away from her and their daughters. She yelled that she did not want a murderer around her daughters while she was crying. David was cornered by the threat of the knife. And just as Lisa moved around to go for her daughters, she was hit with a heavy object. While she fell on the ground, she also hit the sharp pointy edge of the kitchen cabinets. David panicked and left the home. He went underground. In the morning, the neighbors heard the shrieks of the 12 and 14-year-old daughters of David and Lisa and informed police. This was the most horrific night in the history of the peaceful town of Asheville. David was born in the town of Asheville, North Carolina, in the year 1986. His parents were medical professionals and wanted their only son to follow their path too. They brought him up as a person born to be a doctor. He, unlike other kids, would always be engaged in reading books and journals related to medical sciences. When he grew up, his parents took all the burden of his studies on themselves and admitted him to the University of North Carolina School of Medicine. He was an extraordinary student who would always overshadow others. Even his teachers would sometimes feel intimidated by his knowledge of the field. Lisa was an average student having a graceful personality. She was a girl, liked by all. Her attitude, looks, and decency would make any other girl envy her. David and Lisa became friends at the university, and with time their friendship grew into something more. Both of them were quite serious about their careers and did not want to waste time on unnecessary experiments. They loved each other and shared mutual interests. This was enough for them to get married. Soon after their marriage, David's parents died with a gap of 2 years between them. David inherited the assets left by his parents, and at a very small age, he lived in a house many people of his age could not even think of. His intellect, skills, and interest in medical research made him a renowned name in the community. He was an excellent researcher and a medical practitioner, while Lisa, on the other hand, had a full-time interest in practice only. Together they made a perfect couple, and everyone envied them having achieved so much at such little age. David had always been praised for his intellect and abilities. This developed in him a hunger for praise. He became so perfectionist that he was left all alone by others. He became arrogant and emotionless. It was only his wife Lisa and 2 daughters, Emma and Eva, with whom he would be humane at least. He was a family-oriented person, and the only quality time he would spend other than his library would be his family. He was painfully studious. It was Lisa who would take care of most of the household chores. Ashley Parker, a 28-year-old nurse, was recently transferred in 2021 to the Mission Hospital Asheville, where David and Lisa worked. He was a proud LGBTQ supporter and was attracted to males. He was gay. He worked in the ward where Lisa was in charge. Ashley was also a part-time caregiver, and this freelance job of his made him a good sum of money since he was reputable in his field. He was quite confident and would never give a damn to any judgments passed on him. He was also very kind to everyone, especially his patients. His oratory skills were so good that he was even termed as a manipulator by many of his friends. He would sweetly and softly catch everyone. Lisa seemed to like him too. She would always be extra polite and caring towards him. One day, Lisa and David were sitting in the cafeteria having lunch together when she saw Ashley looking for a chair in the tightly packed cafe. She invited him to sit over with them. It was the biggest mistake of her life, which she would regret so badly later on. She introduced the 2 guys to each other. Ashley seemed to like David, but not in a non-sexual way. During the whole conversation, he was very nice to David. Lisa liked his attitude with David, and this made her like Ashley even more, while David, on the other hand, also found him as an interesting company. As time passed, the 3 of them grew closer and closer. David and Ashley would sit in the cafe for discussions which shifted slowly and gradually, from purely professional to personal, and then intimately personal. The 2 lads would now always be seen together, whether Lisa would be present or not. They even started spending time together at Ashley's condo. They would discuss everything. Ashley, who was interested in David, had known intentions for him, but David also felt something special while being around Ashley. He had never experienced this kind of feeling around any other man, and was not aware of his situation. One day while they were sitting in Ashley's house, David brought up the topic of him feeling something strange around Ashley. It struck Ashley with such excitement. It seemed like he had been waiting for such a moment for so long. He hinted towards David's inclination towards males, and did it with such precision that David did not even feel the shock he was in. Ashley, with his powerful rhetoric, first convinced him that homosexuality was a healthy thing. And when he thought he was convinced, he unlayered David's hidden love for men, the love that was presumed by Ashley during their conversations. Ashley tried to convince David, and just as he was about to deny it, in the moment something just happened. David and Ashley were kissing. This was David's first ever kiss with a man, and to his surprise, it did not feel awkward. Although it was a strange feeling, yet it was not a bad one. This was the start of their relationship, the realization of David being bisexual. After this, they would frequently meet and spend time with each other. They would be involved in intimate activities whenever they would get time. They were also seen on dates and movies together. Lisa at first did not notice anything. She was happy to know David had finally found a friend since he had none. She presumed it was healthy for him to spend some time out of his books with real people. but it was soon felt by her when she noticed that David was spending way more time with Ashley than a normal friend would ever do. She became suspicious but would reassure herself with statements like, maybe he is exploring the outside world with his new friend, and that may be the reason for all this. While David and Ashley would enjoy each other's company, Lisa would be busy with managing family and work. As her balance was disrupted by this new hobby of her husband, David became less frequently interested in his family now. He would skip the family dinner, which was a mandatory meal together, and the only free and quality time the family would spend together. His daughters have also started to feel in, and would often ask their mother about Daddy's absence. All this was taking a toll on Lisa's mental health too, but for the love and sake of her husband, she endured it. She did so to the limits of her capacity. It was when one day she texted David for a coffee in the hospital cafe, and he did not reply. She called him, but he did not answer that too. As he was busy being intimate with Ashley in his condo, Lisa visited his medical ward to find out about him. The head nurse of the ward revealed something to her that was unbelievable. The head nurse told her that Dr. David had called it a day, just an hour later than he arrived. The nurse also revealed that it had become a regular pattern of his behavior and had also received warnings for it. She could not believe this, since David was a person who would never prioritize anything, even his family, over his work. It was a time finally for the confrontation. In the evening when David came home, Lisa asked him where he had been. David lied to her being in the hospital, but she got mad at this. She told her about his regular pattern of absentees and asked him to be honest with her. David denied any such allegation and tried to reassure her that nothing was wrong. By this time, tears were all over Lisa's face. David hugged her and saw his daughter looking at them. He hugged them too. They went for a family dinner in a fancy restaurant. David felt like he had been missing this for so long, this aspect of his personality, this family guy personality he had. At night, when they lay in the bed, Lisa was asleep hugging David. She looked like an innocent child. When David looked at her, he felt for the first time that he had been betraying the love of his life. His homemaker wife is the responsible mother of his two daughters. David could not sleep all night. In the morning, when he was headed towards the hospital, he had decided to end all that was going on with Ashley. He had gathered all the courage last night thinking of the past life with his family, and the even brighter future he had planned with Lisa and the kids. He went to Ashley and wanted to discuss something with him, but Ashley, being flirtatious, was in no mood for a serious conversation. The topic was dropped. They got busy in their regular activity. While driving back home, David was feeling a sharp pain in his head. It was out of regret. He did not do what he intended to do. This happened for a few days. He would gather the courage to talk it up with Ashley, and would ultimately let himself sink into the conversation. When finally one day he showed up at Ashley's house, he told him about his situation, thinking that he would get his situation, but turned out Ashley had fallen in love with him and had planned a future with him. He was disappointed and tried to do everything to make him stay, but this time David was fully prepared. Ashley tried to convince him by begging at first, but later turned into threatening him. Ashley threatened him to expose his relationship with Lisa and others and destroy his reputation. It was as if David's bubble had popped. He felt very insecure and threatened. He was confused and caught up in the thoughts of being caught. He felt as if his perfect personality was staying badly. While he headed back home, he could not digest what had happened. He was in a turmoil. David was at a crossroads where he had to choose a road. He locked himself in the room and called in sick for work. He also isolated himself from the family, which also made Lisa even more suspicious. He went into a deep depression and was secluded from society for a few weeks. He would not answer anyone's calls or texts and was getting affected badly. When one night he finally decided to get closure to all this. This was the night of 23rd December, the night when he killed two of his most beloved people. It was not hard for police to identify David as the murderer of the two. The only hard thing was to find him as he was in hiding. But soon, with the help of CCTV and advanced techniques, he was found. When produced in court, he pledged guilty based on psychological effects, but the sentence was inevitable, and the court announced their verdict in May 2024, sentencing him to 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The peaceful town of Asheville took some time to recover from the incident, but the two innocent daughters, Eva and Emma, would never recover from what they had just experienced. Their custody was given to Lisa's sister, but they would never be settled in their life again. If you like this story, make sure you hit the like button. Also, please do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get informed about more interesting crime stories.